This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's April 13th, 2026. On this day in 1856, there was a huge fire on Nashville's public square that destroyed multiple buildings and basically the spot where the Metro Judicial Complex is now. And just one day shy from the one-year anniversary of that fire, Nashville's first courthouse was totally destroyed by another fire. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. For the first century or so of Nashville history, fires were a real problem. In fact, the city's first Presbyterian congregation lost their church buildings to fires twice in 1832 and then again in 1848. There was a fire department from pretty much the start of settlement here, but for decades it was entirely volunteer and not able to do all that much more than organizing bucket brigades. So much was lost in that era when fires quickly grew into blazes that couldn't be controlled. We don't have quite the same fire risk today since we aren't heating and lighting our homes with open flames anymore. But bad wiring and faulty small appliances can still spark and catch surrounding items on fire. All too often, there are reports of apartment buildings catching fire. I'm sure you've seen the coverage on TV with families standing outside, watching helplessly as they hope with all they have that it can be extinguished before it reaches their unit. Dreading the smoke damage they're pretty sure they'll find no matter what. And more, it seems, when the landscape is dry, there are wildfires in this area. Not the huge, raging ones that they get out west, but scary stuff all the same. It's still spring, which traditionally is thought of as kind of a rainy season. April showers bring May flowers and all that. But the latest U.S. drought monitor shows most of Tennessee, including all of Middle Tennessee, is already in drought. We've already had days when the forecasts I've read on the air during Morning Edition included the phrase, increased fire risk. And sure enough, by the end of last week, the Tennessee Forestry Division's wildfire tracker showed an active blaze out in East Tennessee and a dozen more around the state that were considered either controlled or contained, which is firefighter speak for we've got it in hand now. But still, that's a dozen wildfires that got started, which is a dozen too many. All of this points to the importance of high-quality firefighting capabilities in any community. Those fires only stay in the one apartment or the field where they began if a well-trained crew gets there quickly and has the manpower and equipment to get things under control. Right now, some Tennessee communities are being asked to consider whether they have the resources necessary for the kind of fire response that's really needed. In Roane County, out in East Tennessee, officials say they're struggling to find crew members. It's a volunteer fire team. There just aren't enough volunteers. In Marshall County, the entire Cornersville Volunteer Fire Department, including the chief, resigned back in November. They said they were underfunded and strained beyond the breaking point. And last fall, there was a lot of back and forth over funding for Sumner County's network of volunteer fire departments, with fire officials saying they needed more money to keep their gear up to date and in good repair. Notice how I keep saying the word volunteer. Now, I haven't taken the time to count up the totals by hand and do the math, so I can't give you a percentage. But when I scroll through the list of fire departments across the state of Tennessee, a significant number of them are volunteer operations. Now, these are not the bucket brigades from the 19th century. The firefighters get sophisticated training and certifications. They may have as good a fleet of trucks and gear as a fully professional fire department in a city, but they may also have disproportionately low staffing. And often a significant portion of their funding comes from donations. So that can impact how well stocked that fire hall is with the equipment that can make the difference between quickly containing a fire and struggling to get things under control. Back in 2001, a study from the University of Colorado looked at the way population growth can strain the capacity of a volunteer fire response system. It detailed things that make a lot of sense. The more people move to a place, the more need there is for rapid response to fires, and the more calls there are for the other service fire departments provide, emergency medical services. The more dense development is, the more complicated it is to fight a fire and keep it from spreading to nearby buildings. But at the same time, when a community becomes less rural and more suburban, departments have a harder time finding volunteers to do those tasks. Part of that is just the balance and types of available paid work changes when a community grows like that. Volunteer firefighters need a job with a certain amount of flexibility so they can have the time to take the shifts at the fire station. Those jobs can be harder to find and maintain as the place grows. Each local government has to decide for itself whether they've passed a point where a volunteer squad isn't the right choice anymore. The city of Spring Hill, for example, switched to a professional fire department in 2002, but the neighboring Williamson County Fire Rescue is still mostly volunteer. In the meantime, there's a lot of ground to gain in making our state safer where fires are concerned. Tennessee has one of the highest fire mortality rates in the nation. And honestly, we do not need to be looking around at our closest neighbors for ideas of how we can improve either. 7 of the 10 worst fire death rates in the U.S. are in the South. And yes, that includes us. In just a few minutes, we remember a larger-than-life Nashvilleian, Lee Estes, the man depicted in the towering silo mural in The Nations. That's coming up after the newscast.
You've got a lot of things to keep track of. Work schedules, family activities, the ever-growing list of things you need to remember to do. Updating the credit card or banking information for your sustaining membership may have slipped your mind. With just 2 minutes of your time, you can update your payment information and check one more thing off your list. Peace of mind for you, funding for your public radio station. Go online to WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Investigations by WPLN and ProPublica find that Tennessee's threats of mass violence law has resulted in children being charged with felonies over jokes and misunderstandings. Now, state lawmakers have overwhelmingly voted to fix one of the problems with the law.
As the law stands now, if a student says something that's interpreted as a threat against a school, even if they don't have the means to follow through, administrators are required to report it to the police. Otherwise, they could be charged with a misdemeanor. If the governor signs this new bill into law, it will give school officials more discretion. They would only need to report credible threats. This is a complete about-face for most Tennessee Republicans, who refused to back similar language as recently as last winter. One of those Republicans was Farrell Hale, who's now co-sponsoring this legislation.
In some counties, it has become a standard practice to charge every threat, even if it's deemed not credible.
Hale was inspired by the story of a 5th grader with a disability in his district.
Special ed students need all the help that we can give them. We do not need to be punishing them for these type of statements that they have no ability to carry out.
The change comes after pressure from advocates and investigations by ProPublica and WPLN that found many of the children arrested had disabilities and were students of color. One of the youngest children charged with a felony last year was just 6 years old. Still,
this is not a total solution to threats of mass violence.
Zoe Jamail is an advocate for children with the nonprofit Rafah Institute.
It is a huge step forward in terms of signifying like an intent by the legislature that non-credible threats shouldn't be prosecuted.
But the law still does not require the police to consider credibility before charging or arresting kids. Paige Flager, WPLN News.
A conservative think tank has filed a federal lawsuit against Hawkins County in East Tennessee, seeking to repeal its local ban on data centers. As WUOT's Pierce Gentry reports, neighbors hope their government will fight back.
The Beacon Center of Tennessee filed a lawsuit in federal court at the beginning of April. It claims Hawkins County's sweeping ban on data centers defies the equal protections guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. They're representing Exotic Ridge, a Kentucky-based cryptocurrency mining company that wants to install a Bitcoin mine in the middle of a farming community.
I really don't understand why they would want to come into a community where they're not wanted.
That's Mike Trentum. He and his wife live across the street from the proposed development. They fear the lawsuit could set a dangerous precedent if a federal judge sides with the company.
So it's really everybody's fight. It's not just our fight, in my opinion.
In its complaint, the Beacon Center alleges Hawkins County violated Exotic Ridge's civil rights by discriminating against them based solely on their industry. The county hopes to fight that claim in court. For WUOT News, I'm Pierce Gentry in Bulls Gap, Tennessee.
If you have ever admired the blossoming cherry trees on Riverside Drive or the Metro Courthouse, you have the Nashville Cherry Blossom Festival to thank for that. The event happened again this weekend. Music and culture reporter Justin Barney was amongst the estimated 60,000 people there.
Walking up to the Cherry Blossom Festival, I was met with the sound of taiko drums.
We begin with a song called Hiru Sandangaishi, and this song is about a mighty dragon flying in the sky, making big circles.
Director of the fest, Sammy Arnold, told me that the economic link between Japan and Nashville goes back to the 1970s.
By far and away, our most important international partner as a state.
Japan has invested $21 billion in the state of Tennessee, more than any other country in the world.
The connection between Japan and Tennessee and Nashville is very strong.
As Consul General Shinji Watanabe, the Cherry Blossom Fest celebrates the economic impact, but more so Japanese culture. There was ikebana flower arranging, traditional Japanese flute playing, and lots of Nashvillians dressed in cosplay, dressing as their favorite anime characters. Noni Emil was in a yellow wig, a poofy dress, and lots of decorative sparkles.
It's always fun when people, like older ladies, little kids, and they're like, hey, can we get a photo with you? We think you're really cool. And that's just like something that's like, that feels really nice.
Yeah. The fest started in the late 2000s when the Japanese consulate moved here and gifted 100 cherry blossom trees to the city. And the longest line in the fest was for free cherry trees. The Nashville Tree Foundation gave away 750 saplings. Celeste Wilson pointed to the trees next to the courthouse.
Those are the very first trees that were planted in front of Metro Courthouse. Oh. So you can see how large they've gotten since 2008.
And the fest is a fun way to strengthen the bonds between Nashville and Japan.
Japanese culture, it's so many things still coming together in one, and I think it's just a good way for people to be able to connect with other people.
And Japan also loves American culture. And a highlight of the fest was this Elvis impersonator who flew in from Japan and brought everybody together in a rendition of Sweet Caroline. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Justin Barney.
Thank you very much.
Well, spring is here, and you may eye your neighbor's lush vegetable garden and feel a deep, shameful sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. But even with warmer weather than usual, now may not be the time to rush to a garden center and feverishly cram everything in your trunk. The potential for sub-freezing temps is still looming over the horizon, and locals have long hailed April 15th as the first day when it's safe to plant due to minimal risk of frost. But Austin Lowen, who helps run Bates Nursery and Garden Center, does not agree with this rule of thumb. He joined our midday talk show, This is Nashville, and insisted that your plants will survive if you wait a bit longer and you won't overspend.
People earlier and earlier every year want to set out their tomatoes. And then we get a late frost in mid-April and we get down to 28-degree night.
Yeah,
and
it can happen still.
I mean, yeah, we'll sell it to you again, I guess, if you got to come back and buy it. But we really don't want you to do that. We really would like you to plant when it's appropriate. I really like to get that warm stuff in, like really May 1st is really my kind of go-to on that.
That episode of This is Nashville covered a swath of topics around gardening, tree care, and native plants. You can listen to the full show at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. We're going to close today with a bittersweet encore airing of a profile story from 2017. We've recently learned of the death of Lee Estes at age 100. He's the man depicted on the 15-story mural in the Nations neighborhood. The abandoned concrete silo was nearly torn down, but instead became a community rallying point. And WPLN contributor Amy Eskind reported on how the project brought neighbors together.
Two patio bars across the street from the old silo are hosting nightly watch parties. Joanna McCracken, a transplant from England, is one of the spectators.
I don't even know who that is or if it's someone famous or anyone in particular, but it's a a really cool use of that building.
The artist is Guido van Helten from Australia. He's internationally acclaimed for large-scale portraits that look like they could be oversized photographs. He uses a nearly black-and-white palette so the gritty emotion of his subjects comes through. And he likes to make a statement by painting a local.
It's definitely a positive thing to sort of commemorate stories and people that have lived here. People move to a new area because it has an existing character or vibe. It's got a history. People like that when they move to a place.
For the Nations, Van Helten chose 91-year-old Lee Estes, known to friends as LD. He's called this neighborhood home since the late 1920s. Now that he's been chosen for the mural, he's becoming an even more permanent fixture.
Well, I'll just glance over and say hello.
Estes spent his working years in the purchasing department at Genesco. Now he spends his days sauntering around the neighborhood, checking in daily at a market formerly owned by his late brother. That's where I found him and asked how he feels about his newfound celebrity.
Well, I don't want to be famous. I just want to be remembered.
He says when he was growing up, his family didn't have indoor plumbing. They raised chickens for eggs and meat, milked their own cow, churned their own butter, and neighbors raised hogs. The only place for a boy to go was St. Luke's Community House, where he played basketball and went to dances. The Nations was largely an industrial area.
Oh, yeah, the Nashville hardwood flowing ran 3 shifts. At one time, Ingram spinning mill, 4 fertilizer plants.
Estes remembers the silo, too.
There used to be a granary, Gillette granary. We had another Purina granary that was demolished years ago, but they left this one as a historical part of the Nations.
He's been watching the change. Houses on either side of his have been torn down for new construction. Chic restaurants are opening, and young adults are finding the area more affordable than many other parts of Nashville and moving in. People constantly knock on his door offering impressive sums to buy the modest house he built in 1952.
Very few of us are left, and eventually I guess they'll get us.
While Estes has a small stature, his portrait is so tall the artist had to bring in a special crane from out of state.
It's incredible.
Estes' granddaughter, Julie Beller, has been coming from her job as a hairstylist to watch her papa become larger than life.
So he's kind of looking up, looking a little quizzical or hopeful. What do you think?
Probably confused as to why they picked him. Never in his life did he think that he would get any type of recognition like that. That's my papa. Forever.
She says her papa is a quiet, unassuming man, humble in every way.
The clothes that he's wearing in that picture are the clothes that he's had his entire life, I'm sure.
A 91-year-old in a short-sleeve button-down and high-waisted slacks could be seen as an odd choice to represent a hip, up-and-coming neighborhood. But the image is meant to implore newcomers to respect the past. Leanne Merrick, who opened her Tin Wings food shop here 3 years ago, says there is occasional tension between longtime residents and newbies. But shared public art brings people together.
I mean, right now, that's exactly what's happening. Everybody's coming together. And I'm hoping that I can talk my landlord into a mural project on the side of our building.
There will be more art to come. Councilwoman Mary Carolyn Roberts is planning an entire arts district. The centerpiece, though, will always be the towering silo. When the mural is complete, Lee Estes will be joined by 2 young boys from the neighborhood. The artist's nod to the future. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Amy Eskind.
That story originally aired in 2017. Lee Estes died Friday. He was 100 years old. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. So subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter, too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.